Hey, what's up everybody? So I was going to post another long series of videos like I did with the middle linebackers the other day, but I'm kind of over Madden for this cycle and I'm ready to move on to MLB The Show when it comes out in a week or two. So I'm going to update this class one more time. Everybody in the combine, I'm going to fix their heights, weights, and combine number results. So stay tuned for that coming really soon. I'm going to do that pretty quickly. First though, here is a mock draft. I hope you guys enjoy this. Top 32 picks. I'm going to talk about them right now. There is no drama here. Chicago will draft Caleb Williams first overall and have perhaps the most talented quarterback in the past 40 years for the franchise. Williams didn't work out at the combine. He didn't do anything except talk to some people, but it's fine. He's got the talent. He would have been the first overall pick last year. There's definitely a smear campaign online against him. If you ever visit Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, you see all the stuff people are saying about him and all the idiots in the comment sections. Don't buy any of that stuff. He's fine. Diva, maybe. Confidence, I think, is more likely. I believe he's going to be an excellent pro, and Bears fans should be extremely excited. I am not quite sold on either Jaden Daniels or Drake May, especially the way I am with Caleb Williams. But Washington really needs a quarterback and is probably going to draft one of those two players. I'm interested to see how Daniels tests during a pro day. He didn't consent to being weighed or measured at the combine, which worries me. He's listed at 6'4", 210, but 210 seems pretty generous, especially when he was playing at about 185 pounds when he was at Arizona State. But if he really is that big and can withhold the beatings that the NFL will give him, I think it bodes well for his future. Good thrower, good runner, good all-around quarterback. Playing for LSU obviously helped his draft stock immensely. I don't know. I don't feel very confident about either one of these quarterbacks, but expect to see a lot of them taken. You can't win in the NFL without a talented quarterback. I would personally go with either Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joe Alt here if I was New England. I'm not a huge fan of Drake May or Jaden Daniels like I mentioned, and I think those other two guys are superior prospects, especially for a roster that needs pretty much anything. But my mocks are always what I think teams will do, not what I would personally do. And if you need a quarterback and there's one available, it's really hard to go any other direction. May definitely looks the part, 6'4", 223, a rocket arm. He had a tremendous sophomore year, but I did not like his performance as a junior. Too many interceptions, too many bad throws, and poor performances. But the talent's there. Hopefully for Patriots fans' sake, he ends up better than Mitchell Trubisky, Daniel Jones, and some of those other ACC quarterbacks of recent years. Easy decision here for Arizona. Their skill position talent is embarrassingly shallow. You can't win in the NFL with the lack of speed and strength and ability at the receiver, running back, tight end positions. Marvin Harrison Jr. is absolutely in that Julio Jones, AJ Green class of huge, big, strong mismatch athletes at the wide receiver position. Not much to say here. He may be the most talented player in the entire class, and the Cardinals luck out and land him at 4 overall. The Chargers are in a tough spot. Their top 4 players, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams, account for over $70 million in cap space, and they're like $25 million over the cap. So if they end up cutting one or two of those guys, you could move Rome Odunze or Dallas Turner up to the top of their board. Both of those guys would fill a hole that was created at a cheaper cost. But right now, I'm going with Joe Alt, offensive tackle. The Chargers' offensive line is still a disaster, even though they've invested a couple of first-round picks in the position. Justin Herbert needs to stay healthy and upright for this offense to have any chance. Alt measured at a gargantuan 6'9", 321 pounds, and really had a good combine. Couple that with his experience in a pro-style offense. Notre Dame routinely pumps out very good offensive linemen. And I would definitely spend a top 5 pick on this guy. He should be able to step right in at right tackle and really give the Chargers some stability along the offensive line. Yes, I get it. Daniel Jones stinks. But these so-called NFL draft experts and analysts, the ones you see on TV and the popular websites, get tunnel vision when it comes to quarterbacks because quarterbacks are what generates clicks. If the Giants selected J.J. McCarthy in the top 6, that would be an absolute disaster, and I would feel really bad for Giants fans. He's no better than Daniel Jones. The Giants are better off trading back up late in the first round to get somebody like McCarthy or Bo Nix. There's so many more talented players available right now, and the Giants just have so many needs. Rome Odunze, measured at 6'3", 212, ran a 4.45, which is more than satisfactory for a guy his size. Elite ball skills. The Giants don't even have a wide receiver 2 on the roster right now. Daniel Jones is not the answer, but getting him somebody to throw to and filling some bigger needs and drafting a quarterback a little later would be the much, much smarter way to go. There is perhaps no team in the NFL that needs more on offense than the Tennessee Titans. Receiver, offensive line, running back, you name it, Tennessee needs it. Treylon Burks has been a predictable bust throughout his first 2 years in the NFL. DeAndre Hopkins is 31. Malik Neighbors did not test at the combine, but I would not worry too much. He's a fantastic receiver who would be the top guy selected most years. Supreme route runner, a stocky, solid 6 foot, 200 pounds. He should be one of quite a few guys in this class who will be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. If you play fantasy sports, especially in dynasty leagues, you are going to love this draft class. This is a pretty easy fit for me. Falcons have needed a consistent pass rush for years now. Dallas Turner had 20 sacks, over 20 sacks during his 3 years at Alabama, with 10 as a junior. Any worries about his size were put to rest when he measured in at 6'3", 247 pounds at the combine. Ran a fantastic 4.46. I think he's the top defensive prospect in this class. There's other good pass rushers, but I think Turner is the best complete package and would really be a good fit for the Falcons. As far as quarterback, the Falcons are one of many teams coming up that needs a quarterback, but I think they're going to exhaust all veteran possibilities first. Kirk Cousins at the top of the list, maybe even a Justin Fields before they resort to drafting a quarterback. I wanted to give the Bears a receiver to pair with Caleb Williams, but the top 3 guys are all off the board, and it's too early for the next tier. Same with Brock Bowers, who would be a great addition, but Cole Kmet is probably their best receiver, other than DJ Moore, and that's too much of a luxury for a team that still needs a lot of help. Jared Verse ran the full gauntlet of drills at the Combine and showed pretty much everything you want from a rush prospect. Ran well, good strength. He had 18 sacks during his 2 seasons at Florida State. So pair him with Montez Sweat, and Chicago would have something to build on as far as the defensive line goes. Olu Fashanu would be a really good pick here. The Jets obviously need offensive line help. But if they're going to run it back with Aaron Rodgers, I think they might try to get a Tyron Smith or a David Bakhtiari first. And if all those plans fail, then draft an offensive lineman. Somebody like Brock Bowers would also be a really good fit. Garrett Wilson is a stud, but the Jets don't have much other than him. Rodgers needs guys to throw to just as much as he needs players to protect him, and he's running out of former Packers to add to the team. So perhaps they should just draft somebody who's actually good. Bowers, quote-unquote, only measured 6'3", 243, which is on the small side for a tight end, but he's basically just a giant wide receiver. Super talented. I wouldn't worry one bit about that. The Vikings are another team that could go after J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix, depending on how the Kirk Cousins situation plays out. I think they're definitely going to try to re-sign him first, and then if they can't, they'll probably pivot towards the draft. Right now, cornerback is probably the biggest need. They haven't had a shutdown guy since Xavier Rhodes several years ago. There might not be that guy in this class, but Terrion Arnold is probably the best of the bunch right now. He ran a 4.50 40-yard dash, which is pretty good considering he is more of a safety type than a true speed cornerback. Good tackler, good in man coverage, and has the ability to be a CB1 in the NFL. Like many other teams picking around this spot, Denver is going to need a long-term quarterback. Unfortunately for them, I don't see Kirk Cousins really looking their direction, especially with how bad they have mismanaged the Russell Wilson situation. I don't know why a veteran would want to spend his final years in that mess. So Denver may have to sign somebody like Ryan Tannehill and then draft a quarterback in the first round. I think this is too high for the second tier, but quarterbacks are going to be pushed up. You should see 5 or 6 in the first round, whether they deserve to be or not. Bo Nix, 5 years in college, put up monster stats for Oregon this past season. Oregon inflates a lot of quarterback stats throughout the years and decades, but Nix is a quality prospect. He started his Auburn career as a first-round prospect, struggled, fell down, transferred to Oregon and really rebuilt his value back up. He's 6'2", 214, big enough, good scrambler, good arm strength. I don't know if he'll ever be a Pro Bowler, but he could be a solid starting quarterback. It's the best Denver can really hope for with the position that they're in. Copy and paste what I said about the Broncos quarterback situation and apply it to the Raiders. They're going to have to draft a quarterback because nobody worth anything is going to sign on with that organization. I've seen some mocks that have J.J. McCarthy as high as number 3 overall, and that is just completely wild to me. But then again, I'm a nobody YouTube channel with 1,800 subscribers, so what do I know? He did measure at about 6'3", 219, which is a lot better than the 205 people thought he was at. So that helps. But he was a game manager in college, wasn't really entrusted with a lot, and you want more if you're going to draft a quarterback in the first round. He's got good arm strength, decent pocket passer, not much experience, only a redshirt sophomore. That's another red flag to me. As you can tell from my tone and my words, I'm not really high on him, but teams need quarterbacks, and he's probably going to go in the first round. If a team drafts him over Marvin Harrison Jr., they should be contracted to a different league right away. That's mocks, I don't know. Like I said earlier, they get fixated on quarterbacks and ignore the rest of the players in the entire class. Like I've seen some mocks that have 6 quarterbacks in the top 10, and that's just insane. When has that ever happened? But rant over. J.J. McCarthy to the Raiders. After his sophomore season, Olu Fashanu looked like a lock as a top 5 pick in 2024. He did not quite take that jump, but I still think he's a top 10 talent in this class. He just got pushed down to 14 because I could not find a real fit for him before this. But the Saints, they would race to the podium to turn the card in if he was still available at 14. Their offensive line has gotten really old. A couple of guys have left as a free agent. Some draft picks haven't worked out. Fashanu is a prototypical left tackle. He's got the perfect size, very good pass blocker, needs work in the run game, and he's got some bust potential, but at pick 14, it's pretty much a no-brainer for the Saints. The Colts front office has done a really good job of quickly retooling this roster. There's actually not a lot of huge needs at first glance. The biggest weak spot is probably the secondary, but fortunately, this is a good spot to pretty much draft whatever cornerback you want. Quinyon Mitchell is by far the best non-Power 5 prospect in this class. He may be the best cornerback, period, and could push for a top 10 selection if a team falls in love with him. He measured a 6 foot 195, ran a blazing 4.33 40-yard dash. Extremely productive in college, can get interceptions, good man, cover guy. Definite look of a future cornerback 1. Both of Seattle's starting offensive guards and their center are all free agents, and they weren't that good anyway, so it's a pretty easy need here. J.C. Latham played tackle at Alabama, but he measured in at 6'6", 342. That's a big man. He's a road grader, and I think he could be a Pro Bowl caliber guard if they move him inside. And Seattle, that would be a perfect fit. Seattle loves to run the ball. They did with Pete Carroll, and they probably will with their current head coach. So build up that offensive line. The Jaguars really struggled to get after the quarterback other than Josh Allen, who's a free agent. Even if they do bring him back, which they have to, they need to get more guys who can generate some pressure, especially along the defensive line. Byron Murphy from Texas just knocked the combine out of the park, ran a 4.88 40-yard dash at 300 pounds. This is a very underwhelming defensive tackle class. Murphy is the only surefire first-round pick right now, and 17 may actually be too low depending on how the board falls. Franchise quarterback Joe Burrow has suffered 2 season-ending injuries during his first 4 seasons in Cincinnati. Couple that with the fact that Jonah Williams is an upcoming free agent who will 100% leave the Bengals, and offensive line is an obvious need. Fuaga is probably right tackle only. He doesn't really have the quickness to play left tackle, but that's okay. He's a solid run blocker and developing pass blocker, and most importantly, he's a big body with experience who can help out. Cincinnati just needs guys. This pick came down to Latu and Chopper Robinson for me. One guy was uber productive in college but may not be the best athlete. The other guy tore up the combine but disappointed during his time in college. I went with the proven commodity in Latu, 24.5 sacks during his 2 seasons at UCLA. Dealt with a lot of injuries earlier in his career but has bounced back and stayed healthy. You always worry about that obviously, but the production is there and he had a good combine considering his size. He ran a 4.64 40-yard dash as a 260-pounder, so he's no slouch. Byron Young was a revelation for the Rams as a pass rusher, and Latu could provide similar production on the other side. Defensive line is not the biggest need in Pittsburgh right now, but the Steelers always seem to be up against the cap. Cameron Hayward is 34 years old, and they have a lot of defensive free agents, so drafting for the future might not be a bad idea. I like Jerzon Newton. I wish he would have tested at the Combine. He showed that he packed on 10 pounds since his Illinois playing days. His listed weight, at least, was 295. He showed he was 305. Had 18.5 sacks during his Illinois career. As a good run defender, I think he's a very solid defensive lineman and could be a Pro Bowl tackle. The Dolphins' careless spending, contract extensions, and traded draft picks have created a lot of holes on this roster. Secondary in particular was hit really hard. They had to cut Xavier Howard, and a couple of safeties are free agents. Cooper DeJean, I list him as a safety. He could easily play cornerback. A big guy, solid tackler, good zone player. Miami has a big need at both cornerback opposite Jalen Ramsey and safety opposite Javon Holland, and hopefully they could find a spot for DeJean that would maximize his talents and productivity. In case you have not been paying attention, Xavier Worthy broke John Ross's 40-yard dash combine record. He ran a 4.21 40-yard dash. I don't know how that's even humanly possible. These guys are such freak athletes. I already had him as a very late first rounder, so that's basically a ticket to the first round right there. If you break a record like that, you're going to be a first round draft pick. Wide receiver is a sneaky need for the Eagles. They obviously have a great 1-2 punch, but behind that, there's nothing. Things were so bad, they signed Julio Jones last year. So put Worthy in the slot with those 2 guys on the outside, and the Eagles' offense could be very dangerous. Backed behind an all-world rookie quarterback and a very good rookie head coach, Houston won 10 games despite a roster that was relying on rookies and a lot of cast-off free agent additions. So there's still a lot of holes in Houston, especially in the secondary. Kool-Aid McKinstry was a former 5-star recruit who looked like a top 5 pick after his sophomore year. He's a very solid cover guy, didn't intercept any passes, not flashy, not an amazing knockout athlete, but I think he could be a solid cover guy and a good cornerback 2/cornerback 1. Houston has Derek Stingley on the other side. So those are 2 former blue chip prospects. High potential there if it all comes together for those guys. Longtime borderline Hall of Fame offensive tackle Tyron Smith is going to move on as a free agent. Dallas can't afford him, and he simply can't stay healthy anymore anyway. Dallas has Tyler Smith on the roster, who has experience at both tackle and guard. Troy Fawanatu The same with Washington. He was their starting left tackle, also has a lot of guard experience. He had a really good combine and eased some concerns as to whether he can be a tackle at the next level. I think he's better at guard, but he could hold his own at left tackle if need be. Between him and Smith, that would give Dallas a lot of options. They need to keep that offensive line the strength of the team for the whole offense to keep moving the way it has. Other than Jordan Love in 2020, the Packers have drafted a defensive player in the first round every year for over a decade. Unless an offensive tackle falls in their lap, I expect that trend to continue. Green Bay has a few free agents in the secondary, and Nate Wiggins would be a nice addition. He only measured 6'1", 173. That's extremely thin for a cornerback, which is usually a pretty physically demanding position. But he will have Jair Alexander on the other side, and you can't ignore the fact that he ran a 4.28 40-yard dash. Speed is king in the NFL. He's got good length and the ability to be a solid CB2 across a Pro Bowler. The Buccaneers have a few big needs: safety, pass rush, linebacker help, but the board doesn't really align with any of those needs. I don't see any first-round prospects at those positions right now, so it never hurts to fortify the offensive line. Graham Barton played tackle this past season at Duke, but he's expected to kick back inside at either guard or most likely center. He can be a plug-and-play option, a starter right away at any interior position. Tampa has a couple free agents, and the guys they do have on the roster aren't spectacular. So Barton would be an upgrade anywhere on the interior. I know I just said Tampa Bay had a need for pass rush, but there was none available, and then I mocked Chop Robinson the very next pick. Robinson is one of those guys who you knew was going to ace the combine. He's a tremendous athlete. That was never in question. But you kept waiting for him at Penn State to do something, to put together a string of excellent performances, and it just never happened. Guys like that don't often pan out in the NFL, but the talent is there. Arizona is desperate for talent on the roster. They have 2 first-round picks, and they don't really have anybody that can get after the quarterback. So Tampa is a playoff team. I don't think they wanted to take the risk. Arizona's not, and they might be more likely to go fishing and hope that they catch something here. Stephon Diggs remains a top target, and Dalton Kincaid was great as a rookie, but Gabe Davis never quite seized that wide receiver 2 role in Buffalo, and he's a free agent. Brian Thomas, though raw and not nearly as polished as Malik Nabers, had a fantastic junior season for LSU. He's 6'3", ran a 4.33 40-yard dash. He might be a situational deep threat early in his career, but has the potential to turn into, at the very least, a very good second wide receiver. Detroit's defense was improved from the 2022 unit that was amongst the worst in NFL history, but make no mistake about it, the Lions got as far as they did almost solely because of the offense. Detroit should spend pretty much every draft pick to fortify the defense, except maybe draft an offensive guard later on. Chris Jenkins isn't an exciting prospect, but he's a good defensive tackle. A bit small, probably won't command a lot of double teams, but he hustles and can get after the quarterback on occasion and would be a nice piece for a defensive line rotation. As usual, Baltimore has a ton of roster decisions to make during the offseason. They have free agents at basically every level of the defense. Both starting guards are free agents. Ronnie Stanley, Morgan Moses could be cap casualties, so they should just go with the best player available. Amarius Mims looks the part of a franchise left tackle. 6'8", 340 pounds, had a great combine, but he is lacking consistency and experience. Redshirt sophomore, played alongside several other top NFL prospects for Georgia. Needs to clean up his technique, but Baltimore is one of the better teams in the NFL at developing young talent, and they could have a future starter on their hands. The 49ers really need defensive line help. Pretty much everybody's a free agent other than a couple guys, but the board doesn't fall that way. I don't see any pass rushers even close to being worth a pick right now. Offensive line is another sneaky need. Trent Williams is still holding on strong, but he's 35 years old. They could draft somebody like Tyler Guyton to develop for a year or two. Guyton definitely looks the part, 6'7", a very good pass blocker, not much of a run blocker, lacks consistency, lacks experience, dealt with injuries, but he's moldable and he could develop into a starting left tackle to take over for Williams in a couple years. The Chiefs need help at both offensive tackle and wide receiver. Fortunately, this is a really deep class for both of those positions. I went offensive line because it's usually easier to find receiver help later on, and there's been a run on offensive tackles and it could run out before the Chiefs get to their second pick. Jordan Morgan has a lot of experience. He's an agile tackle, came back from a serious injury to have a good 2023 season. He'll have to be coached up and he might need to gain a little bit more additional strength to hold up to the rigors of an NFL season, but there is starting potential there. If you are still here, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope you enjoyed this mock draft. I'm going to try to finish up this draft class with the combine numbers, and then I'm probably moving on from Madden 24 content. Got MLB The Show stuff coming up and going to be really busy with that. Still going to have my Madden off-season roster updated daily, so keep an eye out for that. Other than that, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and hang around. I got lots more coming, and I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.